Hello, this is Ashutosh Varshney speaking to you from Cambridge, Massachusetts, in the United States. And in this video, I'll talk to you about the Epstein files that have stormed American politics. Files were released a few days ago, and they've been a matter of great interest and passion, if you will, in the politics of America for almost a year and possibly more. So, what's the politics of Epstein files all about, and how far might it go? Let's start with who Jeffrey Epstein is or was. He died in 2019, in August of 2019, in his prison cell in New York. And he was arrested on federal charges a month before that. And the charges involved trafficking underage girls for sex. Now, before, of course, he was convicted, as I said, he died, but there was an earlier legal episode in 2008 when he had faced criminal charges in Florida and was convicted of sex crimes, trafficking minors for sex, trafficking underage girls for sex. That was the charge, and he was convicted. He entered what is called a plea bargain, which allowed a lighter sentence, lighter jail sentence after pleading guilty, and to avoid a lengthy and quite expensive legal trial. That's a standard practice in American law, plea bargain, which saves the time of the defendant as well as the prosecution. But after his release, he returned to sex trafficking, and here we are. So why did he become so central to politics, and why was the case not left entirely to the legal process? The key here is the circle of elites who associated with Epstein to the MAGA movement, Make America Great Again movement, which supported unwaveringly, unflinchingly supported Mr. Trump's return to power. To that movement, he was basically an embodiment of the culture of impunity that the coastal elites on the east and west coast of the United States enjoyed, the impunity they enjoyed, despite their moral turpitude and legal crimes. During his presidential campaign in 2024, President Trump had vowed for, or candidate Trump at that time, had vowed to open up Epstein files, which were in possession of the Department of Justice and the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. But after taking charge of the office, his Attorney General, head of the Department of Justice, Pam Bondi, vacillated. And first, she said that there was a client list which would be released. That was in between March and May. And then in July, she said there was no client list, which ought to be released. And Epstein files were basically a distraction from the main business, the principal business of politics in Trump's America, which included, of course, reviving the economy and in particular manufacturing, which included shutting down the southern border to prevent unwanted immigration from Latin America, which included changing the way US government works, and of course, catching democratic elites who were corrupt and must have, according to MAGA movement, protected Epstein, and without such patronage, which was available in the coast, because the coastal states and coastal cities were run by democratic politicians, because without his patronage, without the patronage of such elites, Epstein could not have flourished. So that was the Republican side of the story, and MAGA applied pressure on Mr. Trump, and in a unique moment of bipartisan agreement, something that has not been possible in American politics since the rise of Trump, or since the return of Trump to power, both Democrats and Republicans passed a nearly unanimous resolution in the House of Representatives asking for the release of, or requiring the release of Epstein files from the Department of Justice within a month of the passing of the resolution. And bowing to pressure, Mr. Trump signed the legislation into law. So here we are then. The emails and the photographs released thus far have provided revealing insights into how power and wealth intersect in America, and perhaps more will come as the weeks go by. Epstein's circle clearly scaled the summits of the highest points of politics, highest tiers of politics, business, popular culture, journalism, academia, and also reached British royalty. Now, it's important to underline that this claim about reaching the summits of various walks of life does not mean that all of those who were associated with Epstein, and more names are coming out, participated in the criminal activity, namely the participating in either trafficking of minors or participating in sexual acts with them, which are criminal by law. Now, consider the galaxy of stars that have associated with Epstein. Now, the larger claim here would be that they befriended a child sex offender, convicted child sex offender. They sought his patronage, they sought his financial contributions, and there was a serious level of socialization with a child sex offender. So what is the galaxy of stars that we know for sure socialized with Epstein? In politics, we have the 42nd US president, Bill Clinton. We have Mr. Trump. We have Steve Bannon, a leading figure in the MAGA movement. In business, we have Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft and one of the richest men in the world, and Reid Hoffman, the co-founder of LinkedIn and a billionaire. In pop culture, we have Michael Jackson, who died, Mick Jagger, Diana Ross, Woody Allen, and Kevin Spacey. In journalism, we have David Brooke, a well-known New York Times columnist. But it's Epstein's friends and associates in American university that have received disproportionate attention or the maximum attention in recent days. That is partly because American universities are very powerful and they enjoy a very high status in this society. And two of the most prestigious institutions, MIT and Harvard, in these two institutions, it's clear that Epstein cultivated very influential figures. At MIT, he was associated with the Media Lab, internationally famous Media Lab, whose director had to resign once the financial links were discovered. And we also came to know, very surprisingly, at least to some, about his association with Noam Chomsky, a legendary linguistic scholar who taught at MIT until 2002 and has migrated to Arizona after that. He was also, of course, very well known for his left-wing criticism of American foreign policy, and perhaps he was the leading left-wing critic of America's foreign policy through the decades. But of all academic institutions, the focus has been primarily on Harvard University, which is undoubtedly the richest university in the world, and also one of the most powerful. And the relationship that Epstein enjoyed with Larry Summers has been extensively commented upon and has attracted a great deal of attention. Summers was the former president of Harvard University. He started his career as a very, very well-known and talented economist. He's more than 70 years old now. And he also served as the Treasury Secretary in Clinton administration in Washington. And currently, he is the university professor, this title, university professor is the highest title that Harvard University gives to its faculty. So what have the revelations about Summers and Epstein demonstrated? He visited quite often Epstein's private island on his private plane. He requested funds for his wife, who was also a Harvard professor, for his wife's poetry project. And he sought something that was quite surprising for many. He sought Epstein's advice on how to advance a romantic relationship with a former student whose mentor he was. These revelations were so damaging that Summers had to withdraw from teaching at Harvard and also resign from some highly lucrative, highly paid corporate board positions where he served as a director. But the larger question this episode has raised is as follows. In the US, the wealthy have often sought interaction with private universities. They have supported research and teaching or sought intellectual respectability with their funds, of course. Most of them are given with good intentions because they are legally vetted, but some lapses, of course, creep in, and sometimes with the knowledge of the universities who raise these funds. America's private universities cannot function without private funds. But the larger question, as I said, is why would so many academic stars, who can get resources from multiple other sources, be drawn to a convicted child offender? This is something that psychologists can fully answer. To those of us who are not psychologists, at the very least, this is a monumental ethical lapse. Financial support may be sought for scholarly work, as universities do, as professors do, but one cannot possibly ignore who is providing the financial support and what their credentials are. Overall, the Epstein episode has exposed what can be called the dark underbelly of America's elite politics, business, and society. More evidence is likely to emerge, and it's not clear how far these materials would go and who else might fall from grace as a result of these revelations. I'll, of course, keep the print audience, the subscribers, and the larger public informed about what else comes out in the coming weeks. I'll see you in 2 weeks when I present my next column. And for now, happy holidays and, of course, a happy new year. That's coming soon. Bye.